Hi, I'm Melissa McKee McGrath.
Melissa is this amazing dog trainer, podcaster, and author in Somerville, Massachusetts.
I train humans so their dogs are happy and well-behaved.
And I'm Sip Sipperstein.
Sip is a dragon veterinarian in Oakland, California.
Yep, I'm a doctor for bearded dragons and bunnies and birds and other critters that people keep at home.
And you have just landed in
Totally Pawsome,
an animal podcast for adults.
The show's called Totally Pawsome. Get it? Pawsome?
Each episode, Sip and I will use our combined expertise to share amazing animal stories, give you an inside peek into our professions, go deep-ish into some animals in the news, and maybe even reveal some tips that you will be glad to know if you have pets at home.
A stew of the practical and the just plain silly.
It's a Zootopia party, and we are determined to have some fun. We are not going to watch our language.
We're letting our hair down.
You just don't know what we might say, so hide your children. You have been warned. I mean, unless your kids are cool with fish orgies, bifurcated penises, and us swearing like sailors.
Professionally, of course.
So I think you wanted to start with something referencing the last episode because there was something that you wanted to bring up and kind of extrapolate upon before we get into the episode.
Yes. I wanted to just mention, because I felt this really important, and I started to get into it, and Melissa, as you may recall, I hit a brain wall, which I edited out, which was pretty hilarious, but not quality podcasting. When I was talking about these larger pet food companies having the resources, the money to test their product on the assembly line, and I was talking about making sure it meets the nutritional requirements. But the other things they're testing for are contaminants, toxins, bacteria that shouldn't be in there, and actually having the resources to say, oop, we've got a problem, and we can throw this whole batch out and just chuck it and say, not good enough. And again, you know, if you reference back to episode 3, where we're talking about dog and cat foods, that a lot of these smaller companies just don't have the budget to be doing that level of testing and to be able to throw out entire batches of food that just don't meet the brief. I will mention one other thing, which gets a little away from the point of our topic last time, which is sort of misunderstandings about, you know, what makes a good pet food. But when you're talking about dogs and cats and food allergies, you are not going to find an off-the-shelf food that actually addresses food allergies. And not all dogs who are itchy or cats who are itchy have a food allergy. First, you have to get the diagnosis, and you want to follow your vet's instructions, because there's a very specific way to do that. But these pet foods that are meant for allergies are manufactured on equipment that has not touched these other proteins like chicken or beef that your pet may be allergic to at any point. And if your food came off of a piece of equipment that did also manufacture that other food, you're going to have that allergen in your pet's food, even though it says hypoallergenic or something.
Oh my God.
Does that make sense? So
that does. Yeah,
prescription pet foods that deal with allergens are manufactured on standalone equipment, and that you have to buy prescription from your veterinarian. Anything else is not going to meet those standards.
Cool.
That's a little aside, but thank you for bringing that back around about the, you know, testing and contaminants, because even in human foods, we know that there are recalls on foods. It just happens.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen with pet foods. And some foods, you know, when was it? About 8 years ago or so, when some foods that were manufactured in China had melamine in it. And was causing kidney failure. And so, you know, picking up contaminants like that is super important.
Or not picking them up, I guess. It's like
yeah.
I think I see what you mean. Like picking them up on the assembly line, not picking them up in your pet.
Yeah. You do not want your pet to pick it up. One more point is that if you haven't already, go on YouTube, find Olive and Mabel, and watch Olive and Mabel and look for poker or cards. because...
Oh my God, I love Olive and Mabel.
Oh my God. So these are two Labradors in Scotland, I presume, because the owner's accent is Scottish. These are adorable. They've sort of been a COVID time soul-saving short video experience on YouTube. And I knew of Olive and Mabel, but I really went in this last week, and I feel like them playing cards is one of the best. So
I have to look that one up because I was at the very beginning of the pandemic. He was a sports broadcaster or a news broadcaster or something, and he decided he was going to start doing these things with his dogs. And the one that I saw at the beginning of this whole mess was he did a Zoom call to talk to Olive and Mabel about their performance.
Yes, I just saw that yesterday.
And he had like Mabel in one room and Olive in the other, and they were like on the call, and then like Mabel, you're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you.
We can't see you. Hit the button that looks kind of like a dog bone.
It was so funny. Yeah, it was really good. So if you need a laugh, Olive and Mabel. So Sib, how have you been?
I've been okay. We've had some beautiful sunny days here in Northern California. And even though Northern California is not known for its warm evenings, we even had a couple of warm evenings where we could hang out on the back deck. And after the sun started to set, it was quite a treat. So
nice.
Yeah, loving that. And the critters are good. Yeah. How about you?
Doing okay. Just kind of trying to find a way to like make a different recording space. I'm not cramped up in this closet. It's so small.
We were saying earlier that we have a third member of our podcast, your wedding dress, who
she
is always with us, making crinkly noises, which Melissa tries to. Really supposed to be the silent partner, but
she really is. But man, she's got a lot to say. She's like, you haven't worn me in 11 years. What's wrong with you? Well, I'm not going to fit you forever.
I think it's important.
I don't think it would fit now.
I think it's important to recognize the other members of the podcast, and your wedding dress has definitely been there from the beginning in your closet, making a contribution. Oh my God.
Oh goodness.
Awesome.
So I guess we should make a podcast.
Okay, let's make a podcast.
Let's make a podcast.
Bam.
Oh. I bammed. So the topic I was thinking about doing a bigger deep dive on today would be entertainment, televised educational shows involving animals.
Oh, yeah.
There's this new show with this guy named Chirag Patel, who is a guy that I've been watching in my industry as a dog trainer for years. Like, he's really great. He has some really interesting ways of teaching very basic skills in a fear-free way.
Yes.
It doesn't seem intuitive when you're watching it, but when you're watching him train, you're like, oh, of course that's going to work. And that's way less difficult than trying to force an issue. So, like, he's really, really talented. And he has this show called Cats and Dogs at War. And it's him, and it's a cat trainer. And forgive me, I forget her name because I'm not as up on my cat training. But she's also quite good. And they're filming in Britain, England, UK. I know there's a difference. I don't know what it is. So I'm sorry.
I'm going to send you the chart.
Send me the chart. And to my British friends, I'm so sorry. I'm a dumb American.
Send all email to Melissa McHugh McGrath.
Totally Pawsome Pod at gmail.com. Attention, Melissa, you suck. Oh, God. Anyway, so this particular show got me thinking because there's very few dog training televised shows that I would actually be completely supportive of. And in fact, I find that in a lot of ways, shows like there was one with the Dog Whisperer that I watched when I was younger, when I was starting as a dog trainer. It was on TV, and it popularized dog training in a way that in a lot of ways I think was good because it got people thinking about taking their dogs to dog training. I mean, there's always been dog training, but the boom, I think, really started with that show. But the more and more I learned about how learning works and seeing how he didn't have the qualifications to be instructing people about their animals, and that many of these animals were actually injured and harmed during the show, it really made me think, like, well, wait, what is the cost-benefit analysis of this? Because I would have people coming into my classes going, like mimicking what they're seeing on the show, right? And it's perfectly natural to mimic that stuff. And if that's the only window into dog training that you have is this television show, you're going to do those things because it's magic. But the magic of editing is what made it magic.
Right.
And I know that there's shows out there about veterinary sciences and rescue, and they're always trying to show this big transformation, this horrible thing is happening or it has occurred. And then within the hour, that problem is solved.
Right.
And then the camera crews go away, and then you don't know if it's truly resolved.
Yeah. It's reality television. That
truly,
right? We're not seeing everything about how someone got voted off the island.
Right?
Yeah.
This Shih Tzu got booted off the island. Fifi, extinguish your flame. You are removed from the island. Turn in your bone.
I was gonna say, put down your Kong toy.
But, I mean, there's a lot to be said for these television shows that can inspire people to do the right things, but truly they are entertainment. And if you're not sure if it's a good show to watch to get information, I would always encourage people to look at the credentials of the person that is on the show.
Right.
And for Chirag, he has behavior certifications. He has an extensive list of educational credits in behavior, in training, with reputable organizations. And he's really good. And yes, he's on YouTube. And yes, he's on TV. And that tends to be something that I would say just don't if they're not otherwise backed by credentials.
Right.
But he is, and he's very good. Victoria Stilwell's another one that has lots of credentials. It has done the work. But again, if you're watching her show and you're watching her handle an aggressive dog and it's, quote, fixed in an hour, even though you know this is a period of 3 days or 3 weeks or whatever, in your head, you're still watching this happen in an hour.
Yeah.
And a lot of these things can set unrealistic expectations for when you are working with a professional like me or if it's a medical show with you. And I think that our industry might do better in some ways, or these shows would do better if they were honest and also showed some of the failures, or not even failures, but just really showed how hard this is, and that sometimes it doesn't work in the way that the show would lend you to think that it would. Like, hey, can you get this border collie who's hurting children by biting them? Can you get this dog to love kids? Well, the answer is probably going to be no. Sometimes the answer is going to be maybe behavior modification medication or space, or the dog is managed in a way that it never sees kids.
Right.
Or XYZ. And sometimes that work is really hard and it doesn't make pretty television. But that's what people have to do. So when they call us, they think there's a magic bullet, and there isn't.
Right. And that one method does not, fit all. That how you do training with one animal is not necessarily going to work the same way with another one, and it needs to be individualized.
Correct. And it can be individualized within the parameters of, I'm a positive reinforcement trainer, so in the parameters of positive reinforcement, there are still many ways to get a behavior. It's like math, right? Like, I learned math one way, and it was really hard. And then I had a teacher who just showed me a couple of different things that made it click for me a lot easier.
I was going to ask you about, you referenced people's qualifications, and I don't know if you can speak to this. I'll confess,
Sure.
I never looked it up, but someone like Cesar Millan, who, gained huge popularity, was like a celebrity, and then information started to come out about what was going on behind the scenes that wasn't so cool. But what were his qualifications? Do you know?
He doesn't have any. There's no educational history. It was all, I'm great with dogs. I can take the big dogs. And then he got results. And the truth is, punishment can work. It can work really, really well.
On some levels, and then not on others.
If all you're looking for is obedience, punishment can work incredibly well. If I want my dog to do a really fast sit and my dog is afraid that if it doesn't sit faster, it's going to get choked or kicked or shocked.
Yes.
Right? It will sit. It will sit real fast. But what does that say about the relationship? And for some dogs, that can work. It can work remarkably well if you're just looking at the parameters of, is this obedience working for my dog? If I want my dog to sit really fast and not chase a skateboard, I could do that with punishment. But I also now have a dog who is afraid of me.
Right.
And that's not really the life that I want my dog to have. And so, like, he doesn't have any certifications in behavior. He doesn't have any certifications in training. And the lingo that he uses, I find the most problematic, which is he talks a lot about alpha theory and dominance theory, submissive, red zone, which isn't a thing.
What was red zone? I don't remember that.
Red zone was his way of saying, and again, this is just kind of a nebulous Rorschach test, right? Like, you can see whatever you want in the word. But I think the way he was trying to describe it was a dog that is too hard to handle for most people, like maybe really aggressive or maybe really quick. I would call that dog maybe reactive. He would flood the dog, which is taking the dog and putting it in a very scary situation, and kind of make the dog, and what he called submission is what somebody who's skilled in animal behavior would call shut down. It was basically the dog giving up instead of the dog being able to learn. And that is really the biggest issue that I have with Caesar is the way, or shows like him. I don't want to just say him, because there are thousands of shows like that. And I brought him up
as an example. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great one. I just want to make sure we don't get sued. So it's everyone.
In our opinion.
In our opinion. Let's get a clean one. In our opinion. Quite frankly, I will say that the idea that entertainment is putting forward people who are not qualified to be instructing because they're popular, and because I think in parts, like Caesar, I think has a new show coming out on Netflix. And Netflix did it because he was going to be a big draw, and that was going to draw controversy from people in more educated circles, which is going to bring more attention to their show. So it's all Hollywood, and it's not based in science or real information. It makes flashy TV. And the truth of the matter is, good dog training is boring. Good dog training is so boring, because you're trying not to set the dog off. You're trying to figure out where the level is that the dog can learn and teach the dog below a level of stress. The problem that I really, really, truly have with Caesar is that he's still feeding, Caesar and people like him, is still feeding this notion of dominance training. Like, you have to be dominant over your dog, and your dog has to be submissive to you. And that was based on science or observations of captive wolves, not from the same family, in a zoo. And they fought. And they fought a lot because they didn't have a place to go. Wolves cover hundreds of miles, and their territories are vast and huge. And when you take multiple families of wolves and you put them in a zoo, there's going to be some problems.
Well, right. It's the same way that you put dogs in a shelter environment. Their behavior is going to be very different than it would be in a home environment, because it's stressful. It has sounds that they wouldn't necessarily, there's a population density that is not comfortable. And then you leave them there long enough, and then you can get long-term behavior changes, which is why it's so important to try to not have dogs be in shelters for very long, so that they can, develop some normal, healthy patterns.
It's bad when they do go what we would call kennel crazy. But this notion of dominance as a theory, as a viable theory that you have to be dominant over your dog, has been debunked so many times by actual scientists and researchers and people who know wolves, that it's almost laughable that it still exists, but it got in the zeitgeist again. It started going the way of the dodo, as far as I understand, before Caesar came on the scene. And then when he did, everybody heard you have to be dominant over your dog. And so then the cycle kind of perpetuated itself again. Submission and dominance are real things in animal behavior. I'm not going to say that it's not. You will have maybe a dominant wolf, the alpha wolf, who's in charge of a family, but he's not going to just go around attacking people and attacking dogs. He's their leader. He's the one who's like, okay, we're going to go hunt today. Or, hey, kid, knock it off. Stop picking on your brother, whatever the case might be. They're not like this militant villain from Marvel where
just
they're
pinning
like
all the other dogs all
hate.
day long.
Right. True submission is earned and it's never taken. So when you see somebody at a dog park flipping their dog on their back and just holding it there, they're looking for that dog to show what television would call is submission. And that's A, not how it happens with wolves. B, they think they're looking for submission, but what they're really doing is they're shutting their dog down. And they're making it give up. The fight is gone. So they just quit. And I don't want people to think that if they've done this, that they've been abusing their dog. Because a lot of people just don't know. But it is harmful to the dog to do that in the same way that if I held my daughter down every time she screwed up.
God, right.
Right? At some point, somebody would say something.
And it's so true that became just, as you say, part of the zeitgeist of training, that you got a puppy and you started out by rolling it and pinning it, just even as part of quote unquote play, but like a controlling play. I'm going to stare you down. I'm going to look you in the eye and look threatening. And that was just part of puppy training for like decades.
Yeah. And I remember I used to do this in my classes. I would usually do it with my assistant because I never wanted my students to feel uncomfortable. But sometimes I didn't have an assistant, so I would just find the student that I had the best rapport of, and I would give them a warning. I would never put them in a position that they were uncomfortable with. I would take a student or my assistant into the middle of the room and just say, okay, if you're staring at your dog, just don't be creepy about it. Because if I'm on a subway and you kept looking up from your newspaper or your phone and you kept seeing this.
That was Melissa staring right into the Zoom laptop camera.
Staring. And if you find yourself just staring at your dog like, the fuck you do? You bark one more time? That look for a dog is hard. And eye-to-eye contact, unless there's an existing relationship, means fight. And your dog doesn't want to fight you. So when you're staring that intensely at your dog in order to make them look away first, you're the big boss, all you're doing is making your dog really uncomfortable and unsure as to what to do next. You're not showing them what you want them to do. You're just making them feel bad, right?
By the same reasoning, this is why you in training and I in, say, the exam room or when I'm seeing a pet, if I'm working with a dog and the dog is either aggressive or fearful, just doesn't show all that body language of being at ease and comfortable and hanging out and, wanting to approach me, that I don't make eye contact. And if it's a fearful animal, I'm going to sit on the floor. I think you talked about this in one of your recent BewilderBeasts, your kids podcast.
It was the cat. If you want a cat to come over to you, just pretend you're allergic and you don't want to say hi.
But this is hey, I've got this dog who's clearly uncomfortable, and I've had patients like this over the years, where if I can just be non-threatening, let them approach me, not make eye contact, and then have repeated visits where they start to associate the time with me as different than the people who try to oh, let me pet your dog. And the owner's like, no, but it's okay. I'm a dog person. No. that I can start to build a rapport with the dog who, may have had an unhappy background, but maybe is just wired such that everything is overstimulating and I just need to bring it all down. And this is, I know, what you do all the time, too, with dogs like that.
Yeah, you have to take the pressure off. You have to earn their trust. And some dogs, like Captain, they just run up to you
Right.
trusting you. Like, I'm convinced
Do-de-do-de-do.
that, right? I have seen him try to jump into strangers' cars that are parked on the sidewalk. And if the door is open, he'll just, like, try to jump in. Like, I live with you now. I'm like, dude, I'm still physically attached to you. I'm right here.
You're still on the leash. You're going to be dragging me down the street as the car pulls away. What a world this would be if the dogs just made all the decisions.
Oh, my God. There would be so much humping. Just in the street.
Humping and food.
So much humping.
I don't see where you can go wrong there.
I mean, honestly, neither do I.
It's a plan. Frida, you're in charge now. She says it's nap time.
I didn't know about
Humping,
the naps.
food, nap, repeat.
I said I was about ready to go out on the street and start humping things. You'll be my one phone call, right? Fantastic. But yeah, so if you are going to watch, I guess I just want to like finish up by saying, like, if you are going to watch these shows, please, I know most of them have a disclaimer. This is for entertainment purposes only, but as a dog trainer, I see people coming into my classes and are not taking it as entertainment only, that they are taking this as gospel. So of all of these shows, I would say if you're going to watch one to get ideas and maybe understand your animal a little bit better, I would look at this one, Dogs and Cats at War.
That? Where's?
I think it's on the BBC. They're really great. I was able to see a few short episodes. I had to kind of VPN it. They're really good. Chirag is awesome. But I can highly recommend it because I know he's qualified. He's not just up there spitting bullshit. He's done the work, whereas other entertainers might not have. But yeah, so that, like, if you're worried about, like, where to get more reputable information, if you're watching these shows and you're like, yes, I actually do have a problem, and it does look like some people can help me solve it, then do some more digging. But don't try to solve your behavior problems with a television show because it's there for sensationalism. It's there for entertainment. It's a reality show. And even the most qualified people like Chirag would say, please don't use this in place of actual help. In the same way that I wouldn't watch like a vet show and say, oh, my dog has bone cancer. I can just chop off his leg and it'll be fine. Right? Just because it's on TV does not mean that you should be doing this at home without guidance.
So to summarize, your recommendation is sit, stay, surf the web for the host qualifications.
Yeah. Wow, that was a lot shorter. Had you just said that at the beginning, we could have cut 20 minutes out of this thing.
Melissa.
Yes, Sip.
Sit back and let me tell you a story about giant, magical raccoon dog testicles.
Here for it.
I am here to tell you today about this incredible magical creature. But first, I'm going to tell you about the real-life version of the raccoon dog, which is known in Japanese culture as the Tanuki.
Oh my God, this is in Mario. That's a real thing? Like you get a little Mario suit and you it's my favorite video game. I'm so excited.
So the Japanese raccoon dog is not a raccoon at all, but you could excuse people for thinking that it looks very raccoon-like in the face. They have that mask look and the kind of pointy sides of the face, but not a raccoon at all. They are canids. They are a type of dog, wild dog, and they are related to the Asian raccoon dog. There's discussion about whether they should be their own species, actually, and there are discussions about the Japanese raccoon dog and subspeciation and whether that should be changed. But the gist is this animal is more similar to a fox, but not a fox. They've been called badgers, but they are not badgers. They are a type of canid. They're kind of type of wild dog.
So this is not a pet. You would not.
This is not a pet.
Not a pet.
This
Got
is
it.
a wild animal. And they are omnivores. They hunt all sorts of things. They even catch fish. And they can climb trees, which is more similar apparently to like the gray fox, but not actually that closely related to the gray fox. And really interesting, if you look at them, almost look like a mishmash of animals based on our Western experience, but really cool looking. And you can find pictures and videos, of course, on the web. But the Japanese raccoon dog has had a long history in Japanese lore. They first seem to pop up in imagery and stories around the 13th century, a little bit. But in the 16th century is when they really start to get a foothold as this character, this creature who is into trickery and mischief and likes to play pranks.
Oh, very much like a fox.
Very much like a fox.
Huh.
And in fact, they think a lot of this lore came from much earlier Asian lore of the naughty, evil fox.
Oh,
So the
okay.
fox tended to be really like evil, pure mean. This guy can be mean, he can be evil, he can also be just kind of a trickster and a little naughty. It's kind of a mishmash depending on the stories. He's into stealing, tricks, murder,
A little casual murder.
a little casual murder. He likes to impersonate monks and politicians just to be a little extra naughty. He'll transform objects, he can turn himself into objects, actually. So he could take something and turn it into something else. He can take himself and turn himself into a teapot, whatever. And he loves to throw travelers off their course, confuse them so that they go the wrong way. So basically, he's up to a lot of mischief and sometimes worse. So, that's kind of his bag. He's also known for liking to drum on his belly as part of the sort of throwing off the travelers thing, maybe sounding like thunder or just confusing them. So there are depictions of him with his belly that he's like pounding on. But he's also known for being able to transform his testicles or just have enormous testicles. Huge testicles.
Church bells of testicles.
Compared to many tatami mats of testicles. And he will turn these into things that will let him fly or attack people with it, or handy as a fishing net. He'll even drum on those if he doesn't feel like drumming on his belly. He can make scary faces with it.
I'm sorry. He's got his bass drum and his hi-hat. It's just...
And finally, I did come across a reference to even using it as a children's swing.
That is not for children.
The interesting thing is that he does come up in children's stories and in modern day, like children's cartoons. He, shows up in Super Mario Brothers, Animal Crossing, lots of places in anime. There's even a Hello Kitty Tanuki.
No.
Yes.
So my cell phone ring is the Mario theme song, and my alert is like the coin sound from Mario. So like when I get a text from you, say, it goes ka-ting, like the little Mario coin, because I love this video game so much. Like, I have a pair of Mario leggings, and now all I'm going to think of is the next time that I'm flying with his tail, that really the motor of that moving tail is going to be those giant church bell testicles. It's what's giving him his oomph.
Well, we're going to have to get you some Tanuki leggings just to,
I don't know if I'm okay with this.
So a few more little things about him. He, I mentioned that he can transform things. And one of his really common tricks, apparently, is to transform, like he'd pay you in what looks like money, but then he leaves and it just turns into leaves.
Oh.
Yeah, so you're left there not paid. And another one is offering you a delicious meal, which you begin to eat, but in your mouth just turns into horse poopy.
Oh,
Yeah, that's how he rolls. So.
That's a bummer.
That's a bummer.
I would be so sad if I was trying a maki roll and it turned into, I don't like it.
A horse nugget. Yeah.
A nugget.
So. But these days, we mention these sort of, cartoony anime kids things, but he has a presence just in the general culture. And you'll find these statues of him depicted as this, in the modern form, this sort of round-faced, round-bellied, jovial, smiling dude with a straw hat and a promissory note in one hand and like a sake bottle in the other, meaning he doesn't feel like paying his bills and he just wants to get drunk outside of shops and restaurants around Japan. He's just like this figure that you'll find all over the place. And he's even kind of developed this, like, a Japanese version of our lawn gnome where he comes in all sorts of styles. So he might be dressed for work or holding a chainsaw or dressed in a baseball uniform or whatever. So he's into everything.
Probably because of all that sake, he thinks that he can do everything.
Right. Like, I'll wear this today.
Yeah, I can sing this song. I'm fine. I can fly.
I'm next for karaoke.
Right. Yes, I can fly.
So, he's just this funny creature that it started like showing up around the 13th century here and there and is now just like all over the culture in poems, in books, these huge figurines outside of the shops, and they will depict him everything from just this jovial guy with the hat and the note and the sake bottle to actually having these giant testicles, and there's nothing sort of taboo about it. Like, as I say, it's in the children's stories. He can just have his giant testicles and, well, I guess I shouldn't say eat them too. and just be totally accepted for all of his silly trickery ways.
So, like, I'm picturing them like two extra feet, like he's sitting with his tail and like you see his like little feet and then just like two giant...
They just take up his whole lap. They are just sitting in front of him. And then in the old wood block cuts, they are like jutting up into the sky like if you think of that old Japanese print of the giant wave.
Oh yeah, like, I have that on my ankles. Yeah, that's one of my tattoos. Right.
Almost like that. They're like they can be doing anything. They can be, but those statues, they'll just be like this huge scrotum just sitting in his lap. And actually, I did see a reference to where that idea of the testicle just becoming almost...
Oh my God! I'm sorry, I just Googled it. Wow!
Yeah, well...
Wow! Hello, Atlas Obscura. Thank you. Oh my... It's like the whole size. It's like... Okay, so and they are hairy. Not everything gets cuter the bigger it gets.
Round or flat or...
Oh, no. Like, one guy is... Okay, there's... I don't even know where to start. It's like a fox... Like, it's like fox weight, slender, but kind of looks like a raccoon.
Right, there's that version where they're more slim. Those are more the early versions, or where they're kind of slim and more fox-like looking.
And his balls, like, they are the whole size of him. And like, okay, I have had a child. I have had an actual human shoot out of my body, and she's going into 4th grade next year. They get bigger. Like, there's a point where, like, I could not pick her up anymore. These testicles have gone past that. They are up to his shoulder, and he's holding them in front of him as, like, these I'm guessing businessmen are kicking him in it, almost like an MMA fighter would hold up a punching bag in front, like the coach would hold up a punching bag in front, and the fighter would kick. That is what this Tanuki is doing, and like and he seems cool with it. Like he's not like I'm in pain. He's like, yeah, you got more. Like
bring it. Yeah.
Like I was picturing like maybe a baby Bjorn. Appropriate's not the right word, but like you could like carry it like a baby. No. These
are like multiple times his size, flying in the air. He can use them to fly. He can like they're huge. If he wants them to be. All depends on what he wants to do.
I kind of wish I didn't look that up. Wow, that's fascinating.
They think that some of the origin of this idea of his testicles being able to just get larger and larger might have come from gold workers who would need to pound out the gold really thin to do sort of like a gold leaf, and that they would use the Tanuki, the Japanese raccoon dog, testicle skin to pound it on, and they need something that would stretch, and apparently it can once it's off the animal and dead, can be stretched out and then used for pounding the gold. So this idea of it being able to just get bigger and bigger went from that practical use to the lore.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, not for the dead Tanuki. And
no.
Like, I know it's not good podcasting just to have 40 minutes of my jaw on the ground and me just going, like gasping, but that's pretty much what this otherwise would have been.
You need to look up pictures of the Tanuki. We will have links in the show notes.
I'll put it up on social, too.
You haven't lived until you've really taken...
You really have
Tanuki testicles into your heart.
And unfortunately, the only way for them to get there is via your eyeballs. Sip, we are at the end of the podcast.
Holy shamoly, where does the time go?
But we'll be back.
I'll try to be patient.
Our music is by Jason Schaaf, with additional music by Ableton Live.
This week, our thanks go out to Chirag Patel for being an amazing, qualified, and inspiring dog trainer for people like Melissa to follow. And to Melissa's friends at Barks from the Bookshelf, another awesome podcast that interviewed Chirag a few weeks ago. They've also interviewed Melissa. Thanks Steve and Nat, and thanks to the amazing British TV quiz show QI for turning me on to all things Tanuki.
You can find more on our show notes or visit our website, TotallyPawsomePod.com. And we have a social. We have Twitter. We are at Pawsome Pod.
And now all that's left is shameless self-promotion. Melissa, bring us all of that bling.
I am a certified professional dog trainer outside of Boston, Massachusetts, the author of Considerations for the City Dog, host of BewilderBeasts, another podcast for curious folks, but unlike this, it is totally safe for work and all ages. You can find more about me and my projects, speaking engagements, classes, presentations, and more at melissabmcmcgrath.com. Now take it away, Sip.
I'm a veterinarian who loves to work with exotic animals in and around Oakland, California, the operator of Zuzu's Puddles Productions. And when I'm not treating hedgehogs, box turtles, and parakeets, you can find me painting my toenails purple. And you can find more about me and about exotic pet care at drsipvet.com. That's DRSIPVET.com.
You can reach us both at totallypawsomepod@gmail.com. Send us your topic ideas or questions, or send us bizarre and silly animal stories, including those not ready for Little Billy's grade school science lab. Think more along the lines of sexually transmitted diseases of koalas or opossum private parts. It doesn't have to be R-rated, but it helps.
So that's it. That's the end of the podcast.
Thanks for listening. Hug your pets if you've got them.
Unless you have a pet cane toad, in which case I professionally advise against it. It's a toxin thing.
And respect those opossums. Or as we say, stay possum.
Stay possum.
Sip, we're at the end of the... Chicken fucker. Oh, God, is that going at the end? That's God damn it.